Katt Williams has never been one to bite his tongue, but this time he may have gone too far. During a late-night podcast appearance that's already causing internet whiplash, the outspoken comedian dropped a jaw-dropping bombshell. I still don't know who Michelle really is. At first, folks thought it was another wild joke, till Katt kept going. He raised cryptic questions about Michelle Obama's past, odd media patterns, and a string of rumors that most people would never dare say out loud, especially not about the most beloved First Lady in modern history. Now, the internet is split. Some call it comedy. Others say Katt just lit a fuse that could unravel the legacy of Barack Obama himself. What did Katt really mean? Why now? And is there any truth to the storm he stirred? This is the moment the Obamas were never ready for. It was supposed to be just another podcast. Another unfiltered moment with Katt Williams, where the truth slips through the cracks of comedy and satire. He was a guest on the Raw and Reckless podcast, a new underground show that thrives on controversy and conspiracy, hosted by ex-comedians turned truth chasers. The episode had a casual vibe, dim lights, incense smoke in the air, soft trap beats playing under the intro. But within minutes, Katt did what only he can do. He took a left turn. The conversation had been lighthearted, covering everything from celebrity culture to cancel culture. That's when the host said, "Katt, you ever get nervous when talking about political figures like the Obamas?" Katt smirked, leaned back in the worn leather chair, and let out a slow, deliberate laugh. "No, 'cause I still don't know who Michelle really is." Laughter erupted in the studio, awkward, unsure. But Katt didn't flinch. He leaned forward, locked eyes with the camera, and repeated it. "I'm serious. Y'all know I'm serious. I don't joke when it comes to legacies, and I don't joke when it comes to cover stories. Michelle, she's the mystery nobody want to talk about." Suddenly, the room went quiet. The hosts froze, realizing Katt wasn't just playing for shock value. He was steering into something deeper, something calculated. And once the clip hit Twitter, the floodgates opened. Within hours, a 30-second clip of that moment was viral. TikTok edits, reaction videos, and Twitter threads spun out of control, most quoting Katt directly with the caption, "Katt Williams says Michelle Obama's past doesn't add up." Some users called it a comedy misfire. Others accused Katt of being irresponsible with influence. But then something strange happened. Fans started digging. Old footage, archived documents, college records, photos from her Princeton days. Conspiracy theorists latched onto it like fuel to a dying fire. One particularly viral thread claimed Michelle Obama's early life was intentionally vague. Her hospital employment history had strange gaps. Some of her yearbook photos looked digitally edited. It was all baseless speculation, but it didn't matter. The more outrageous the claims, the more attention they got. Katt, meanwhile, didn't issue a clarification. He didn't backtrack or apologize. Instead, during an Instagram Live the next night, he doubled down in that same sarcastic, heated, serious tone. Why is it that if you ask questions, you, the bad guy? What? We can question Drake's lyrics, but not Michelle's origin story. He smirked. And just like that, the internet exploded again. Now, this wasn't the first time someone had stirred up mystery around Michelle Obama's identity. For over a decade, conspiracy theorists on the fringe corners of the internet have tried to discredit her, whether through fake documents, doctored images, or flat-out lies. But no one with real cultural reach had ever platformed those ideas before, not until Katt. This moment felt different because it wasn't coming from a faceless troll or anonymous message board. It was coming from one of the most unfiltered, respected voices in black comedy, someone who had long been critical of the government, the elite, and hidden agendas. This time, his questions weren't landing like jokes. They were landing like accusations. Meanwhile, Michelle Obama remained silent. No tweet, no press statement, nothing but Barack. He was spotted in NYC the next day, looking visibly tense while entering a black SUV outside the Carlisle Hotel. Paparazzi yelled out questions about Katt's comments, but Obama ignored them. Still, a teenage was done. Late-night news hosts picked it up. CNN ran a segment titled, "When Comedy Crosses the Line." Fox News, unsurprisingly, leaned in harder, with Tucker Carlson's replacement saying, Katt Williams asked what millions of Americans have been thinking, but were too afraid to say the cultural lines were being drawn, and quickly. You were either with Katt or against him. But this wasn't just a one-time comment anymore. It was turning into a movement soon. YouTubers began dropping deep dives with titles like 10 Things About Michelle Obama That Don't Add Up. Why did Katt say that about Michelle? The Obama Illusion. Even people who didn't believe. The theories were watching and sharing. Views turned into discourse. Discourse turned into polarization. And suddenly, a once-laughed hot joke had become a national conversation. And here's the twist. Some people began questioning Katt's motives. Was he doing this to promote a new comedy special? Was he secretly working with some alt-right media group? Or was this just another classic Katt moment, speaking reckless truth wrapped in comedy? But what made it all even messier was the timing. Katt's comments came just 2 weeks after. Michelle had quietly launched a new initiative to mentor young black girls through a tech-based educational startup. She had just made headlines for donating to schools and mentoring programs. Her legacy was strong, and this moment was supposed to be about uplift. Instead, the headlines had shifted. Now, every mention of Michelle had Katt Williams attached. To it, her photos appeared beside words like mystery, identity, and questions. Barack's face was being dragged back into the mix after years of trying to stay away from the political drama. Katt had thrown a Molotov cocktail right into the carefully crafted image the Obamas had worked for years to protect. And whether you saw it as brave, petty, or downright disrespectful, one thing was clear: the internet wasn't letting it go. What began as a throwaway line in a podcast had now mutated into something far more sinister. Michelle Obama, the poised, graceful former First Lady whose legacy had become synonymous with dignity, resilience, and hope, was now trending for all the wrong reasons. And all it took was one question from Katt Williams to ignite the fire. Who is she really? The backlash came in waves. First were the Obama supporters, fiercely loyal and quick to shut down the narrative. They dismissed Katt's comments as dangerous, inflammatory, and deeply disrespectful. Michelle, they said, had endured enough. From racist caricatures during her White House, years to false claims and degrading memes. But Katt's fans weren't backing down. They argued that it was deeper than just gossip. This wasn't about disrespect. This was about truth. Or at least the right to ask questions in a world where so much is scripted and controlled. And that argument is where things took a disturbing turn. For over a decade, the Obamas had been considered untouchable, their legacy carefully maintained, often seen as the pinnacle of modern political grace. Michelle had released a best-selling memoir, starred in a Netflix documentary, and had become a symbol of inspiration for millions of young girls worldwide. But now, with one podcast comment, that image was being shattered, pixel by pixel, and Barack Obama was being dragged right back into the battlefield he'd worked so hard to leave behind. It wasn't just the conspiracy theorists who were circling. Major conservative pundits, sensing blood in the water, began latching onto the story, amplifying Katt's words and twisting them into confirmation of their long-held beliefs. Fox News featured the story in multiple segments. One guest host leaned in with a smirk. When even a comedian like Katt Williams starts asking questions, maybe it's time we do too. Other right-wing media channels went even further, digging up every unflattering clip, every minor contradiction from Michelle's interviews, even minor inconsistencies, like conflicting anecdotes in her memoir or questions about her college years, were being inflated into suspicious gaps. Meanwhile, online, things were escalating into chaos. Michelle's high school classmates were getting DMs from random YouTubers asking for old photos. Her university records were being requested through FUA filings. Someone even falsely claimed to have access to her hospital employment badge. And yet, through all of this, Michelle stayed silent. Not a tweet, not a statement, not even a public appearance. But that silence only fanned the flames. For Katt Williams, the moment had become bigger than he ever intended. Or maybe this was exactly what he wanted. His name was all over YouTube. TikTok edits with millions of views showed his quote in slow motion, synced with eerie music and grainy clips of Michelle walking through the White House. And then, during his surprise appearance at a stand-up show in Atlanta, Katt addressed the situation again, this time in full control of the spotlight. He walked onto the stage, the crowd already chanting his name. He lit a cigarette, paused, and said, "I ain't say she wasn't Michelle. I just said we don't. Know what they ain't telling us? And if that's a problem, maybe they the problem." The crowd roared. Katt wasn't just feeding the flames, he was fueling them with kerosene. Barack Obama finally broke his silence a few days later, but not in the way people expected. He was attending a tech panel at Stanford, speaking about AI ethics and misinformation when a student journalist from the campus paper asked, "Mr. President, how do you feel about public figures questioning the legitimacy of your wife's identity?" Obama stiffened. For a moment, he didn't respond. Then he offered a calm but clearly rehearsed response. "I think we're living in an era where the loudest voices aren't always the wisest. My wife is the most authentic person I know. And anyone who's ever met her knows that too." The crowd applauded, but it didn't stop the speculation. What made this even worse for the Obamas was the collateral damage. Michelle had recently partnered with multiple nonprofits, including one focused on inner-city youth mentorship. The viral backlash around her identity led some conservative donors to pull out of events, citing media distractions. The White House, though no longer occupied by the Obamas, was being bombarded with calls. Reporters were hounding press contacts. Even journalists who once covered Michelle with admiration now found themselves questioning the wisdom of staying. Silent Dot, was her silence noble or strategic? Was it dignified or suspicious? These questions became the headline debate across America, and somewhere in the middle of it all was Katt Williams, untouched, unbothered, and gaining more attention than he'd had in years. This wasn't just another comedy scandal. This was the kind of moment that shifts public narratives. Katt was becoming a symbol, whether people liked it or not, of fearless speech, unchecked speculation, and the raw power of internet virality. He wasn't just taking down the Obamas. He was redefining who gets to ask the questions, and who doesn't, and perhaps most dangerously, his followers were starting to feel empowered to do the same. Michelle's team finally spoke up, but it was brief. A spokesperson released a single-sentence statement to NBC News. The former First Lady will not dignify baseless conspiracy theories with a response. It was meant to be the end, but by then, it was too late. The damage was already done. The comments, the YouTube thumbnails, the reaction videos, the amateur investigations, they weren't going away. In fact, the moment Michelle refused to engage, the narrative took another twist, and this time, it was Barack's turn to feel the heat, because someone leaked an alleged audio clip from a private phone call, reportedly between Barack and a senior aide. In the clip, which hasn't been verified, a voice sounding eerily like Obama says, "This is getting out of hand. We should have shut Katt down sooner." Now the right-wing media had even more ammunition. Was Obama trying to silence Katt? Was there truth to what Katt was saying? And most of all, what were they so afraid of? The stage was set. America was no longer debating Michelle's biography. It was now debating the legitimacy of the Obama legacy itself. And as crazy as it sounded, the internet wasn't asking whether Michelle had secrets anymore. They were asking, what else haven't they told us? The Obamas built a legacy on something rare in American politics: relatability. They weren't just the first black family. In the White House, they were elegant, poised, educated, and inspiring. Barack's speeches gave hope, and Michelle's authenticity won hearts. But all it took was one out-of-pocket comment from Katt Williams to send that image into a tailspin. The man known for roasting celebrities in fur coats and Versace robes had now become the accidental torchbearer of the internet's most volatile obsession: exposing the elite. And the question wasn't just about Michelle anymore. It became a symbol, a challenge to everything the Obamas represented. Because if Michelle wasn't who people thought she was, then what else about the perfect first couple was an illusion? By the third week after Katt's infamous podcast aired, things had spiraled into a digital witch hunt. Hashtag movements like hashtag Who is Michelle, hashtag Obama cover-up, and hashtag We Need Answers were trending globally. Reddit threads had hundreds of thousands of upvotes dissecting Michelle's old photos, mannerisms, even her college essays, as if the truth was buried between the lines. YouTube was flooded with creators making 30-minute breakdowns with titles like Michelle's High School Yearbook, What's Missing? Katt Williams just ended Obama's image forever. This one photo changed everything. We knew about Michelle. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was becoming cultural warfare. Even comedians were torn. Some praised Katt for pushing boundaries and refusing to be politically correct in a sanitized world. Others said he had crossed an invisible line, punching down, not up, and damaging people who had done nothing to deserve such scrutiny. Kevin Hart was asked during a promotional interview if he'd ever touched topics like that on stage. His response was telling: "Nah, man, there's a difference between speaking truth and opening the floodgates. Some things, even if they're jokes, cause real damage." That interview went viral too. And meanwhile, Michelle's silence had become deafening. Not because she owed anyone answers, but because, in today's internet, silence gets filled with assumptions. Enter the bombshell twist that sent things into chaos. A 2011 letter from a now-deceased Chicago doctor mysteriously resurfaced. The letter, posted anonymously to a popular conspiracy blog, claimed the doctor had treated a patient in the 90s who later became a public figure. One whose story had been radically restructured. Was it real? Was it AI generated? Was it a hoax? No one could say for sure, but the damage was done. Within hours, the story had spread across Instagram, Facebook, Truth Social, and Telegram. It was the perfect storm. Katt Williams' comment: Michelle's silence, Barack's rumored phone call. And now, a cryptic document. Now here's where things went from online conspiracy to real world consequences. At a small-town library event for Michelle's Reach Higher initiative, protesters showed up, holding signs that said, "Stop lying to us and we deserve the truth." They chanted until police arrived. The event had to be cut short. Several schools pulled back on promoting her memoir to students, not because they believed the rumors, but to avoid controversy. A senator from Texas even mentioned the situation during a campaign rally, saying, if they can lie about something as basic as identity, what else have they lied about? It was clear now the smear campaign had escaped the internet and entered mainstream political discourse. Barack Obama was furious. Behind closed doors, insiders revealed he felt betrayed by the silence of former allies in the media. In his view, this wasn't just an attack on Michelle, It was a coordinated effort to erode public trust in everything they stood for. And he wasn't wrong, because as soon as the Michelle's questions gained steam, pundits began digging into Barack's past too. Old business deals, university ties, even birth certificate conspiracies started making a comeback. It was like watching the entire Obama legacy unravel, thread by thread, and all because of a comedian with a mic. Katt Williams, meanwhile, refused to apologize. In another surprise, set in Detroit, he addressed the backlash directly. "Y'all mad I asked the question, but you're not mad they never gave you the answer. That's the game. Y'all just don't like when somebody moves the pieces without permission." That soundbite went viral overnight. He wasn't backing down, and whether he meant to or not, he'd tapped into a cultural nerve that even the most powerful couple in modern politics couldn't control. As the dust began to settle, a larger conversation emerged. What happens when questions become weapons? What happens when one man's curiosity or comedy sparks an avalanche of doubt that no amount of truth can undo? Michelle Obama didn't disappear. She didn't crack. She released a single, powerful video weeks later, not addressing the rumors directly, but reaffirming her message to young women. You don't have to explain yourself to people who are determined not to understand you. Your light is your proof. Keep shining. It was calm, powerful, but not enough to stop the questions from echoing, because the legacy had already taken a hit. Barack Obama, once a figure of unshakable respect, now stood on shakier ground, not because the rumors were true, but because they had been believed even briefly. And in this era, perception is more powerful than truth. Katt Williams didn't destroy the Obamas, but he did something arguably worse. He made people look twice. He shattered the illusion of invincibility. He exposed the cracks that no legacy, no matter how carefully crafted, can afford. And in doing so, he reminded us of the most terrifying truth in today's world. A single question can break everything. So now we ask you, is this just comedy? Gone too far? Or did Katt Williams crack open something much deeper? Is Michelle Obama being unfairly targeted? Or are people finally saying out loud what they've whispered for years? Because whether you agree or not, the impact is real. A legacy is under fire, and the internet is watching it burn. One clip, one post, one conspiracy at a time. Let us know in the comments, did Katt take it too far, or did he just say what others were scared to? Smash that like button if you made it this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more raw, unfiltered breakdowns of the stories mainstream media won't touch. Because on this channel, no truth is too uncomfortable to unpack. See you in the next one, and remember, sometimes the questions matter more than the answers.